I used to think successful budgeting meant gripping every dollar tightly, stressing over every purchase, and of course, watching my wife like a hawk to keep things on track. But as you can tell by the fact that I'm still happily married, I've learned a better way. Over the past decade, our budget has gone from a constant source of stress to a tool that's helped us change careers, travel the country in an RV, spend way too much money on pet food, and actually enjoy our life together. And in this video, I want to share 7 simple habits that made our budget better instantly so that you don't have to spend the next 10 years hating yours. The first habit is about regularly reviewing your budget reports and refining the way that you track your spending to get good data. I like to use the 5% rule, meaning I don't let vague or general categories ever get more than 5% of my monthly income. Let me show you what this looks like. When I'm reviewing my reports, I pay special attention to categories like Amazon shopping or miscellaneous or unexpected or things like other kids' discretionary. Right now, this miscellaneous category is only $20 a month. If I compare that to my monthly income, which in this budget is $8,800, I'm well underneath 5%, which would be around $440. If any of these categories ever start to get above that $400 mark, I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper to see what's going on. That would mean coming over here to the all accounts section, searching in the search bar for that category, and then starting to look and see what's actually getting categorized there and figure out if I can break this up into maybe 1, 2, or 3 categories to better represent the type of spending I'm doing. Now, when it comes to something like Amazon shopping, the problem here is it really could be anything. This is less about breaking this one up into more categories and more about being diligent on the front end to categorize the transactions based on what I actually bought. For me, the whole purpose behind budgeting is to use as much money as possible on the things that I care about the most. And I can't do that if I'm not clear on where my money is currently going. Speaking of reviewing reports, that brings me to habit number 2, which is analyzing my overspending and planning for it. Now, I had to learn this habit the hard way. And unfortunately, because I'm so thick headed, I've had to learn it multiple times. During the first few years of our marriage, I caused a fight on virtually every trip that we took, including our honeymoon. I was neurotic about how I would plan for these trips. I'd map out every single expense, the hotels, the gas, the food, the airfare if we were flying. I'd cover all my bases, or so I thought. One area that I consistently forgot was small things to remember the trip by. I have, on more than one occasion, freaked out over Hannah wanting to buy a hoodie or a $30 necklace or a coffee mug because it wasn't in my plan. This caused us to get into a fight and totally ruin what otherwise would have been a nice vacation. Now, thankfully, Hannah and I have since learned to communicate better around money. But this habit is about better planning so that over time there's less and less unpredictable things like this to stress out about. Here's the idea. After a large purchase like a vacation or a home renovation or Christmas spending or a birthday party, I review that data in my budget to see where I underestimated. Then I update my targets so the next time a purchase like this comes up, I'm ready for it. Over time, I've gotten much better at estimating some of these larger items and experiences. For example, these days, I just plan for us to be able to buy a hoodie or necklace or coffee mug on any trip that we plan. This way, Hannah is able to enjoy some spontaneous spending, and I'm able to relax knowing it's part of our budget. Okay, habit number 3. This is probably the simplest habit on our list, but is also one of the most powerful. And that's asking the question before I make any purchase, what is the underlying value behind this purchase? To explain what I mean, I want you to imagine that you're interviewing 4 different people at the same restaurant who ordered the exact same meal on the same night. You ask them the question, why did you spend money on this? Perhaps one of them answers because they didn't want to cook and clean. So the value they were buying was convenience. Maybe another came because they work from home and they just wanted to get out of the house and have a new experience. So they were buying novelty. Another maybe came for the social time with their friends. So what they were buying is relationship building. And maybe the last came because they're a foodie and they're truly buying the enjoyment that the food itself brings. The point is that although these people are spending the exact same amount of money at the exact same time on the exact same thing, they might be doing it for very different reasons. And this is true of every single purchase you make. In fact, you're very rarely ever buying something for the thing itself. You're buying a feeling or a desire that you hope this purchase gives you. In fact, I've made a list of some of the most common values I've seen drive purchases amongst my clients. Like I just mentioned with the restaurant, some people might go because it makes them feel comfortable. Others might go for convenience. Others maybe go for showing love because they picked up a meal for their family, or maybe it has to do with novelty and just getting out of the house. There's lots of different values that might drive you to purchase a particular thing, and sometimes it's maybe even more than one. So before spending money, I pause to ask the question, what value am I buying here? And the next logical question, of course, is do I really want this value? Is that value a top priority for me? If not, it's easier to pass up on that and reallocate this money towards higher priorities. This is by far the most important question I ask myself that directly helps me align my budget with my values. And speaking of aligning my budget with my values, the fourth habit is writing a check for my offering every Sunday morning before church. As a Christian, I don't believe that my money is my own. Everything I have, everything I earn, all the resources that Hannah and I have been blessed with belong to God and are entrusted to us to manage. In fact, this is why our net worth tracking sheet that I use says assets under management, a term normally used by financial advisors to represent their clients' wealth. This helps remind us that we don't own these assets, we steward them. And one of the ways we do this is by giving at least 10% of all that we earn back to God. Every Sunday morning, we review the budget, thank God for what He has entrusted to us, and then write a check to take with us to church. Yes, we could give online, or we could write a check only once a month instead of weekly, but we found that writing a physical check every week helps keep our role as stewards top of mind. And another thing I feel called to steward is my family. And one of the ways I do that is habit number 5, working my family's interest into the budget. I know this sounds like it could be a one-time thing, but it's not. This is an ongoing, ever-evolving habit that I'm constantly doing. Practically, what this means is that I'm looking for ways to work my wife's interest into our budget. That means I'm listening when she's talking about her hobbies or tells me about some home projects or dream trips or something for our pets that she'd like to get. I'm also observing her and paying attention to the things she likes to do and the places that she enjoys spending. And as part of my monthly and quarterly routines, I look for ways to increase the items in the budget that I know mean a lot to her. I do this partly because I love her and it truly makes me happy to see her happy and enjoying things. And the other reason I do this is that I want her to buy into the budget that we've created for our family and be excited to talk about it. If I'm constantly using the budget to beat her over the head and tell her she can't do things, she's going to hate it when I bring it up. If instead, I make sure that we're budgeting for things that she cares about, the budget becomes a tool to help us do more of the things that are important, not less. Right now in my life, I only have Hannah to worry about. But when I work with clients with children, we want to make sure that their interests are worked into the budget as well. This helps facilitate family discussions about priorities, trade-offs, and it's also a great way to get kids engaged in the budgeting process. That said, if you're listening and thinking that you aren't even sure what your family's interests are, you'll want to pay attention to my 6th habit, which is to create a culture of dreaming in your home. So what do I mean by that? Well, the idea is to create a culture of asking questions, of wondering, of dreaming about the future, trying new things. We want to make it normal to ask your spouse or your kids questions like, if you could have any skill in the world, what would it be? If you could travel anywhere, where would you go? If you had to spend $1,000 in the next 10 minutes, what would you buy? My wife and our close friends can all tell you that I ask questions like this all the time. I ask questions at the dinner table, in the car, on walks, laying in bed at night, with friends going out to eat, or even in text messages. I ask questions that get people thinking and dreaming. And it should go without saying, but the second part of this habit is that I listen. I act interested in their answers because I am interested. After all, I'm asking questions to the people that I love. Why wouldn't I be interested to hear about what they love? Now, the reason this makes budgeting better is because when we need to have a budget conversation, I can then draw on the dreaming conversations we've already had. We can take a look at the budget and see where we may need to cut in order to achieve some of those dreams we've been talking about. And again, if this is done correctly, the budget doesn't feel restrictive. It feels like a tool to help us achieve what's actually important to us. If we already have a culture of talking about the future and asking big questions, it becomes much easier to talk about the finances as simply a way to work towards that future. And this naturally leads us to habit number 7, which is to check the budget before I make a purchase. This is simple to say, but hard to actually do. However, checking the budget before spending, actually pulling up my phone and forcing myself to decide ahead of time where to make a cut if I want to overspend on a specific category, is much easier to do if I've been practicing the last few habits. And why is that? Well, if the budget is built to include the stuff that I actually care about, the stuff my spouse cares about, the stuff my kids care about, then I want to check the budget because I'm so excited about this future that we've been dreaming of. I don't want to overspend in a thoughtless way that's going to mess that up. By building a culture of dreaming, the whole family wants to stick to the budget because the budget is just part of how we're going to achieve this shared mission we've created. We've dreamed together, we've laid out a vision for the future that everyone is excited about. So everyone is also excited about sticking to the budget that's going to help us get there. The action step here is to get the budget on the home screen of your phone. Make it super easy to check and make sure it includes things that you and the rest of your family are excited about. This is what will actually create behavior change. And if you'd like help knowing how to stop overspending when you do check your budget, watch this video next.